Hey everyone, please don't mind that I'm not on camera today. It's just sometimes I don't really feel up for seeing people or having people see me, and I just kind of want to cocoon in a blanket and eat ice cream. But I have put off filming this video for long enough, so this is my compromise. I'm like a ghostly voice without a face, and if you're new here, you're not gonna know what I look like. Yeah, that can't be that much of a shock. My face is always everywhere the rest of the time. This must be a nice break for you. Anyway, in my search to review YouTuber books, I came across Like a Bawse, a title which I am far too nerdy to pronounce properly, and also English. It's a book written by Lilly Singh, who also goes by Superwoman, I think, on YouTube, and it's a book which she describes as a guide to conquering life, which, you know, is something that I think we'd all like to know how to do, so universal appeal right there. Great stuff. Now, for some background, I don't know much about Lilly Singh. I've seen a few of her videos here and there. I don't think I've sat down and watched one the whole way through, because I don't know, I personally didn't find them funny or entertaining, but maybe I'm just not her target audience, you know? I'm probably a bit too old and too English and just generally not really cool enough. I admit that. That's cool. I'm used to it. I think the first time she ever really popped up on my radar was when she was complaining that sexism was the reason she wasn't earning as much on YouTube as some men, which is ridiculous. And by not earning as much as some men, I mean she just wasn't in like the top 10 highest earning YouTubers or something. She's still making literally millions. She admits that in her book. It's just apparently there weren't quite enough millions for her. Which, you know, as someone who scrapes together to pay the rent every month, kind of rubs me the wrong way. But yeah, this whole thing, she like kicked up a fuss about like the gender pay gap on YouTube and and you know me, I call myself a feminist, I'm all about equality, and I have mixed feelings about the gender pay gap argument in general, you know? While it's true it definitely exists in some industries, especially among women over say 35-ish, it's not as straightforward as a lot of SJW types would like you to believe. I mean, for example, in the UK, female university graduates under around 28 often actually earn more than men of the same age with the same education. However, as the age group we're looking at gets older, this slowly shifts until men are earning considerably more than women in those same positions. I did a whole essay about this at uni and why the potential reasons for this might be. Is it because women are taking time out to have kids so they kind of lose that wage progression? Is it because women of those ages are on the whole less assertive when asking for certain salary or pay rise or whatever? Is it because of sexist bosses? Is it something else? I did a whole essay about it. I'll actually try and find it out if anyone's interested in reading it, and I'll pop it on Patreon. And then there's other things as well, you know, you have to consider the data for unskilled labour, semi-skilled labour, and so on. And that's just in the UK. It's different in every single country. It's a very, very complicated issue that in no way boils down to simply, the world's sexist and you pay me less because I'm a woman. It's not that simple at all. And while it is something that I think we need to discuss and work on, it's not as simple as women like Lilly like to make out. That aside, a little bit sidetracked there. One thing I love about YouTube is that it is based on equality of opportunity, if not equality of outcome. Yes, sometimes the algorithm screws you over for a while, but that's nothing personal. It's just an issue that we have to deal with when we're relying on imperfect algorithms, and every algorithm is imperfect, so what are you gonna do? Other than that, everyone has the exact same tools at their disposal and the same rules for getting paid. Payment is merit-based and has nothing to do with your gender or your race, your age, anything else. I'm not saying YouTube's method for paying their creators is perfect, it's not by any means, but the problem definitely isn't rooted in sexism. No one person sits there and says, ooh, they're getting X amount of money, they're getting Y amount of money, ooh, they have a vagina, let's take a bit of money out of their paycheck and give it to this man. That's ridiculous. And so I found Lilly's complaint stupid and childish. And, you know, it's like a kid with 4 ponies throwing a fit because some other child comes along and he's like, can I pet one? And she's like, no, they're mine. I deserve them all. Give me another pony. I don't know why I'm doing that voice. I'm sorry. The next time she popped up on my radar was when commentary channels started mocking her for being part of the loud equals funny community. And then more recently, she kind of popped into my life and my YouTube feed for her awful one-note late-night comedy show, which I'm sure you've all heard and seen about. No, seen and heard about. There we go. So with all this in mind, I picked up her book because, we've done Gabbie Hanna, we've done Trisha Paytas. We are making our way through YouTuber books. And don't you guys worry, Lele Pons is next with her semi-autobiographical novel about high school. And it is as bad as you would imagine. But before then, Lilly Singh. You might be surprised to hear this, but I actually had quite high hopes for this book because for one thing, this is an opportunity for her to explain her thoughts at length, in detail, with the help of an editor. So maybe I thought she'd come across as more reasonable, logical, rational, and interesting than just her reactionary tweets. And secondly, I didn't think you could translate loud equals funny into text, so I figured we'd see a different, more mature, more well thought out side to her humour. Really high hopes, I was quite looking forward to it, but I was wrong. Even the first page of the book opens with her literally screaming at the reader. I have never felt more intimidated opening a book before, and I've read nearly all of this bad boy. Not joking, great book. Look, I'm a simple, nerdy girl. If I want to be yelled at and intimidated, I'll go back to school. But let's put on my big girl pants and have a read. Holy crap, I wrote a book. Wait, let me back up here. Hi, my name is Lily, and holy crap, I wrote a book. If you're reading this, I'm assuming it's for one of three reasons. 1, you are familiar with my YouTube videos and also know me as Superwoman. Not so much. Also, I'm finding it really hard to do the shouting bits here, the bits in all caps, because it just keeps blowing my mic out and my little audio thing is no, don't do that, no! Anyway, if so, thanks for supporting me outside of the digital space and allowing me to come through your screen into your home like that terrifying lady from The Ring. Come to think of it, we have similar hair, so I apologize in advance for that terribly accurate comparison. 7 days, JK, I'm chill. I know, this is her attempt at a joke, but reading this makes me feel like I'm having a conversation at a party with someone who's had a bit too much vodka, despite it only being 8:30, and she's talking in your face just a bit too loudly and a bit too quickly, because she thinks she is the life and soul of the party. If she went home, no one would be having a good time, right? She is the key to this night, and she's gonna be in your face about it, and you're just standing there, politely smiling, nodding while she makes you feel like crap and intimidates you and kind of scares you a bit, and you're just waiting for the moment you can turn around and drain your white wine and go have a cry in the loos. What do you mean too specific? We've all been there. 2, you're a parent and found this in your child's bedroom and you're curious. You're also nosy and want to ensure that this book isn't filled with the filth that will corrupt your baby's brain. Hi there, I can assure you this book is family friendly with a healthy hint of sass. Yeah. Family friendly, which is why one of her chapters opens with the supposed joke. In sex education class, I learnt that when a man and woman have intercourse, the woman can become impregnated and carry a child in her belly for 9 months. Me, on the other hand, I have many kids, but I didn't have intercourse to create them. I just have the kids with none of the action. That's why I drink vodka on Tuesdays. It's funny because as a woman, your self-worth is tied to whether a man wants to put his pee-pee in you, and when he doesn't, you turn to alcohol. Isn't that funny and relatable, all you young, impressionable children in Lily's audience? 3, you have no idea who I am, or you've vaguely heard of me. That's completely fine. Maybe you're a total stranger who just wants to know how to be a bawse. Or maybe you're looking to add some diversity into your life. Oh, there we go, this is me. Got it, okay. Except the last point. Lily seems to have this weird, warped view that people collect different races of people in their life, like Pokemon, gotta catch them all. I mean, call me old-fashioned, but I like to choose my friends and the influencers in my life based on how much I like them as people, their interests, what I can learn from them, how much fun we have together. Not their skin colour. That I couldn't care less about. And trust me, when you start viewing people as individuals and not just caricatures based on their skin colour or whatever other appearance thing you want to pick up on, you genuinely end up with a much more rewarding and diverse group of people in your life than just going around saying, oh, need one of them. Lily goes on, for those of you who aren't familiar with me, I'm best known for creating uplifting comedic videos on YouTube, amongst other things. I'm the holder of a psychology degree, an activist for gender equality, and occasional rapper, a sister, a unicorn, and now an author. So, coolsies, decent start, not the unicorn bit, that's kind of cringy, but the rest, decent. Good to know she's actually a pretty well-rounded person with a lot of skills. She writes, what's a boss? I can't pronounce that, okay? I'm too English. I'm just going to say boss from now on, alright? What's a boss, you ask? Great question. A boss is like a boss. Oh. A boss is like a boss, but so epic that I had to change the spelling. Unlike a boss who is defined as such only within the workplace, A boss... no, screw it, I'm going back to boss. A boss is... I'm so bad at this. A boss is someone who excels in both personal and professional settings. A boss exudes confidence, turns heads, gets hurt efficiently, communicates effectively, and hustles relentlessly. My hope is that this book will unleash your inner boss and give you the tools necessary not only to survive life, but to conquer it. So I hate the word hustle, but that aside, cool. It's a fairly generic self-help book with more, like, cool kid language. So, yeah, okay. I can see it being a bit cringy, but fairly decent influence on young people. Don't hate it so far. She goes on to say, I'm not an expert and I'm not claiming to be one. However, I've had some truly unique experiences that have taught me valuable lessons. I'm writing this book for the same reason I started making YouTube videos, because I want to be a positive light in this world. Damn, yeah, I can respect that. That's awesome, brilliant. This book isn't merchandise or a checkmark on my to-do list. It's so much more than that. Although it's definitely those things too. The first section is titled Rules for Reading This Book, and I actually started to think it wasn't so bad. She's like, think of these as guidelines, not strict rules. Don't go into learning something new being all defensive, have an open mind, don't get mad at yourself. And I'm sat here thinking, yeah, damn, this is actually really reasonable advice. Maybe this is going to turn into a really positive review. And then she goes and ruins it. She just follows every reasonable point up with unnecessary screaming. And I know that sounds weird, screaming in a book, but just look at this. Alright, here we go. Start stretching. It's about to get real. Cue Rocky theme song. Are you ready? Please proceed to beat your chest with determination. This is the moment. Would be great if you could clench your fists in preparation. The time is now. Initiate heavy breathing. Bonus points if you squint. 3. Maybe jump a little. 2. Roaring noises are encouraged. 1. Here we go. It's time to be a boss. You know how sometimes books can get you all excited and hyped up and ready to learn, and you're like, yeah, this is amazing. This isn't one of them. This makes me tired and confused and leaves me with a little headache. If beating my chest and roaring is what it takes to be a boss, I think I'm probably better suited to being a plain old boss. Part 1 of this book, it's split up into like 4 parts. It's called Master Your Mind, and it opens with a photo of Lilly, totally 100% legit playing Nintendo 64. You know, it's a candid photo, not posed at all. This is how I always play games. And then there's this really cringy intro where she describes herself playing Mario and she's trying to be funny. There's a slight metaphor in there about life being like a video game. But honestly, it just feels both unoriginal and like it was written by someone who doesn't actually play games very often, if at all. It feels more like trying to relate to the kids thing rather than actually having some personal or meaningful thing to say. Like, I don't know, it's a weird place to start the book. Like, I don't hate the message, but I think it's a weird choice of metaphor. It doesn't seem suited to Lilly. It remains slightly undeveloped. And yeah, like, so in the summary at the end, she says, have you ever played a video game then lost because you realised you were looking at the wrong part of the screen the whole time? You were so confused as to why your controller wasn't working, but really you were just trying to control the wrong character. That's what trying to control people is like in real life. We're often so fixated on getting people to behave in accordance with what we want that we forget to focus on ourselves. The best way to stop people from pushing your buttons is to start pushing your own. A plus Y plus Z, left joystick. I think it would be better if she made a reference to people being like NPCs, who, you know, you can interact with but you can't control, or, you know, if she wants to go with like this, like looking at the wrong part of the screen thing, she could have made a reference to like playing in split screen and you're looking at the other player's half the screen by mistake, which I think is kind of what she was getting at. But even then, like, she didn't explain it well, and it's kind of outdated in gaming. There's not a huge amount of split screen games like that anymore, like barely any are when we're talking about multiplayer. So again, it just kind of feels like she doesn't know games. It feels like she's putting this analogy in purely for kids to relate to, and only for that reason. Not because it actually means anything to her, not because she actually likes games. It all just felt kind of disingenuous and kind of fell flat. Her actual personal story in this chapter, in this section, is about being in a dance troupe before starting YouTube, and that felt a lot more real and a lot more genuine, and I wish she'd focused a lot more on that instead of this weird gaming analogy that doesn't really work for her. And you know what the really annoying thing is? She tells literally this exact same story a bit later on in the book, but instead of talking about Mario, she's talking about Mario Kart. And you're literally just sat there thinking, wait, haven't I read this before? Just because it's like 100 pages later doesn't mean you can repeat the same thing. It's just kind of weird, to be honest. Next up, there are some surprisingly useful sections about stuff like dealing with hate online, and it works because it's genuine advice, you know? She shares her genuine experience, and yeah, there's a few cringy jokes in there that are a bit like, oh, did you need them? But she doesn't overcrowd it with awkward pop culture references for no reason. And yeah, I don't know, it feels real, it feels personal, it kind of works, it's fairly good. And while I'm not the target audience, I can see it actually being useful to young people. But then a few sections later, she just reverts back to her bad habits. And where she could have a potentially really interesting discussion, she ruins it by making some terrible Game of Thrones reference and some awful jokes, just to try and seem relatable and cool. So basically the premise of this section is that it can be good to share some stuff with people, but you shouldn't share everything because that makes you vulnerable. And now this is something I actually think about a hell of a lot, and I've discussed it with a lot of people. I've spoken about it in videos before, and a couple of weeks back I had like the absolute privilege of discussing this exact topic with one of my favourite musicians of all time, who I, like, after being a fan of him for like the last 8 years, I actually got to spend some time with him and hang out a bit, and it was amazing. And we were like texting, and I said to him, like, you put so much of yourself into your lyrics and your songwriting, and that's amazing because you take a song like Freak, and when it came out last year, I was going through some stuff and it helped me through some really tough times. It made me feel so much less alone to know that someone else, especially someone who I looked up to and respected so much, knew how I was feeling and wasn't afraid to express that and kind of show it to the world. And like I said this to him, but I was like, how the hell do you do that without making yourself too vulnerable? And he gave me this great advice about using art to heal yourself, but still protecting your heart at the same time. And it was amazing to speak to someone who gets it and who could kind of like give me this amazing advice. And I'm rambling, but like when you're a public figure like this, and I'm talking kind of more about Charles here than me, because, you know, I'm not half as well known as he is, but it's difficult to know how much of yourself to put out there. You want to be real and genuine and honest, and you want to create things you're proud of and that you put your heart into, but you don't want to leave yourself too open. You don't want to make yourself too vulnerable. Finding that balance is very, very hard, and if you get it wrong, the stakes are so high, and it can be terrifying, you know? When I opened up about struggling with like self-harm and stuff, so many of you guys have shared your stories with me since, and I think it's helped all of us feel so much less alone. But when you look at someone like Kent Hovind, he latched on to what he perceived as a weakness in me and used it to try and push his agenda when he thought I was vulnerable. And if I hadn't had such an amazing support network around me of you guys and my friends, I don't know. I don't know what effect that would have had on me. So you've got to be careful with people like that. I guess what I'm saying is, it's a really, really important topic with a lot to potentially be discussed. And Lilly undermines it all with this really awkward Game of Thrones reference, and not even a good or relevant one at that, just one where she's trying to be cool and like be like, oh, the kids will get this. Now, Game of Thrones, as you guys probably know, I'm a big fan of the TV series, and I haven't read all the books yet, but I'm making my way through them. Game of Thrones has a lot of secrets and lies and people hiding things and other people opening up about things and so on. And there's so many examples she could have given here of, you know, so-and-so kept this to themselves because it gave them this strength or whatever. Instead, she decided to go with the first season of Game of Thrones, and Daenerys apparently hiding quite how powerful she was throughout that first season until the end of it. And she summarizes it with, long story short, if you're selectively secretive, you might become a queen, have dragons, and get to sleep with a very sexy man named Khal Drogo who rides a horse. I know she's making a joke, but I can't help but feel she's just missing the point of Daenerys' character completely. She wasn't hiding her powers in that first season so she could become queen and sleep with a very sexy man. She doesn't hide anything in that season to be strategic, I don't think. She does it out of fear and lack of self-confidence. Like, we literally see her confidence and self-esteem growing throughout that first season, and it's incredible to watch. We see her kind of growing and maturing and becoming this wonderful, strong woman. And yes, the power was in her all along because of who she is and, you know, but she could only really use it when she chose to accept it and embrace it, when she lost that youthful naivety. It wasn't necessarily that she was biding her time, it's that she was figuring things out, she was maturing, she was growing. I don't know, otherwise don't you think she'd have used those powers to stop her brother manipulating, bullying, groping her, forcing her into an arranged marriage? Don't you think she'd have used those powers to stop herself being repeatedly raped? You know, what benefit did she have of hiding those powers while she was raped by Drogo? I think Lily's just kind of missing that. I don't know, I kind of have to wonder, like, did she even watch the same show or read the same book as I did? I don't know, like, genuinely confused. Has she even seen it? I know, I can't help but think she just wants to throw this in there because she thinks, like, oh, Daenerys is cool and young people will like that and me. In the next section, Lily references Drake. And now I know this book was written in 2017, which I thought was just last year, but turns out it was 3 years ago. But this reference aged like milk. Oh, it's so bad. In fact, early in his career, Drake got booed off the stage in his hometown. Sounds pretty uncomfortable. And also, who boos Drake? I don't know, how about anyone who doesn't like grown men who groom, have inappropriate conversations with, and grope while on stage underage girls? The rest of this chapter is filled with just so much shouting. I've never seen so many capital letters and exclamation marks used in one book before. It's kind of exhausting to read, you know? I think one of my main problems with this book, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a while as well, is just the level of name dropping and stories of just, I did this and this and this, and then she gives some really vague advice, but she doesn't ever go into any details about how to actually go about any of it. It's just an excuse for her to brag. Like, take the chapter on negotiating, for instance, right? She basically talks about how you should always aim higher than you want, so when people barter with you, you won't be too disappointed, you're more likely to get what you actually wanted in the first place, which is absolutely fair, fairly decent advice, right? But I still have so many questions, like, how do you bargain? How do you barter? How do you negotiate? How do you get that courage to say to someone, I want X? When you are negotiating, how far is too far? Is there a best way to convince people? What do you do when you still don't get what you want? How do you stop people walking all over you? How do you politely decline an offer that isn't good enough? I just have so many questions that Lily doesn't even begin to address or answer. The closest thing she gets is with this bit that reads, a boss doesn't let anything stop them from aiming high. I ask crazy things of my team all the time and I won't accept anyone telling me something is unrealistic. Don't give up before you even try. I refuse to believe something can't happen until I'm flat out told no. To be honest, sometimes even after hearing no, I still don't believe it can't be done. Why? Because I'm relentlessly determined. And you know what? It's worked out great for me so far. It's fine to push for what you want as long as you're charming and polite about it. If you aim low, you'll end up lower than you intended. That's why you have to aim high. No one else is going to compensate for your lack of ambition. But then before she has the opportunity to give any practical advice, she just reverts back to bragging with, I had the opportunity to shoot a collaboration video with First Lady Michelle Obama about the importance of education around the world. Okay, cool, great, but what did the process of bartering really look like? Who did you talk to? What kind of persuasive techniques did you use? What if they'd come back and said no, 15 minutes? Would you have kept pushing for more or given up? How would you decide that? How do you read body language signals or, clues in emails to tell you whether your negotiating has been successful or not? Some people hate negotiating, and negotiating too much can make you lose out on certain opportunities. How do you stop that from happening? How do you know where that line is between I know what I want and I'm asking for it and being a choosing beggar? These are the questions I have. These are the things I'd really like to learn and know. These are the things that Lily never bothers to address. She just wants to name drop and move on and pass it off as some kind of vague advice and self-help and be like, no, I'm doing this for you. I'm telling you about how me and Michelle Obama did me, because it helps you. No, it's not. It's name dropping for the sake of it because you want to show off. Also, personal note, can we just stop with the creepy asterisks, please? Just no, none of that. Mostly, though, Lily's jokes aren't funny. And this is kind of what bothers me throughout. It's not just that they're anti-jokes that are so bad they're funny. They're just not funny in the first place. She's trying way too hard. Take this bit, for example, where she says, a lot of parents, especially South Asian parents, are firm believers in having several backup plans when it comes to life. With respect to your career, finances, even relationships, welp. They stress how important it is to have a plan A, plan B, plan C. Hell, some parents might even make it to a plan E. Yes, that's right. A plane. Badoom-tsh. I'm here all night, folks. That's not a joke. That's just nothing. why? It's not funny. It's not a pun. It's not even a real play on words. It's stupid. And then she follows it up with bad advice. She goes on about how she dropped out of doing a master's to concentrate on YouTube and tells her young followers, who are literally mostly children, not to bother with a backup plan. She says, I started treating my career as if it was a guarantee. Instead of having a plan B, graduate school, and a plan C, an office job, I developed a plan A 2.0, and a plan A 3.0. YouTube and entertainment were always going to be plan A. Make that your plan A and don't clutter your mind with 3 other plans that are backups. Your mind, energy, and time need to be united for your plan A to work. Of course, what I'm suggesting is risky, not to mention terrifying, but if you're willing to work for your dream, lose sleep for it, give 200% for it, then put all your eggs in one basket and make the basket golden. Which sounds great, I guess. But unlike Lilly, not everyone can have their parents supporting them for a year while they go chase their dreams. I hate to pull out the privilege card, but Lilly is talking from a place of privilege here, and I don't think she knows what it's like in the real world. I don't think she knows what it's like to struggle. I mean, sure, I would have loved to follow my dream of having some kind of creative career while I was younger, but you know how difficult it is to do something like that when you're starting from nothing and have no money, and you're financially independent with no one to rely on but yourself. It's near impossible. I had to put that stuff aside, you know? I worked 2 retail jobs to put myself through 6th form. I did a business degree because I thought it would be practical, and while I was at uni, I worked more retail jobs, did bar work, and then on the side, I did freelance photography and design work because that was my passion. But sometimes you still need the other stuff to follow your passion, and it means it takes a little bit longer to get there. But it's how you survive, and it's how you make sure it's not all or nothing, you know? I would have loved to say, screw everything else, I'm going to be a full-time photographer. Of course I would, but that wasn't possible. I couldn't just follow that dream, that passion, and do something fun. You know, I had to focus on other things too. I needed a backup career where I was guaranteed to make money. I needed an education to get to any of those places. I needed to work those extra jobs to pay my rent because no one else was going to be paying it for me. And you know what? I'm glad I got my degree. I'm glad I did all that work experience. I'm glad I worked real jobs in the real world before doing any of this. But I guess even with everything, I do feel a lot safer knowing if the worst comes to the worst, I have my degree and my other skills and plenty of work experience to fall back on. Backup plans aren't weak or silly or distracting, they're practical and they're necessary. And yet it might mean it takes you a little bit longer to get to where your ultimate dream or goal is, but at least you'll get there. You know, sometimes you need to take things slow and steady instead of just putting all your eggs in one basket and then when that basket falls apart, you're left with nothing. I think I'd rather slowly boil my egg than stick it in the microwave and watch it explode. Back to my problem with Lilly's name dropping, because this is a big thing repeated throughout the entire book. You know, I don't think a chapter or a section or whatever goes by without her name dropping, and it gets old so quickly. Like, oh my god. So in this one chapter, she starts to talk about, you know, when you feel pressure. And she's like, oh, you know when you have to go give like a big presentation in school and you get scared? Oh yeah, like I can totally relate because those are times I worked with Selena Gomez, Priyanka Chopra, Shay Mitchell, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not exaggerating, she literally does that. She drops all 4 of them and compares it to giving a presentation in school. Just so funny and relatable, right? Yeah? Like, I'm learning so much. Now please tell me how many sugars Selena Gomez takes in her coffee because I just know you're waiting to brag about it, Lilly. And this happens in every single chapter, and it just gets so old, you know? Like, this all happens over about 15 pages. And as a set, when I was on the set of my first ever feature film, Dr. Gabbie, I became great friends with Kunal Nair, aka Raj from The Big Bang Theory. I have a friend named Lindsay Sterling who just happens to be, in my opinion, one of the most talented people on the planet. I learned the importance of showing interest from my friend, Bridget Mendler. As if this situation wasn't high stakes enough, Dwayne Johnson's family was coming to see me perform. Selena Gomez walks up to me with open arms and gives me a huge hug. It's ridiculous, and if you think that's a lot in about 15 or 20 pages or whatever, in less than 3 pages she manages to drop all of these. The first time I ever met Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I noticed something very specific about him. My friend and fellow YouTuber Grace Helbig also pointed out this specific trait of Dwayne's after she met him for a shoot. The king of, Soca music? Machel Montano walked into my dress rehearsal when I was performing in Trinidad and Tobago. The other person whose impeccable manners and class have made a major impact on me is the star of Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon. He walked into my New York City dressing room the day I was scheduled to be on his show, and we instantly started chatting away about the show. But it was time to shoot. YouTubers read mean tweets for Jimmy Kimmel's show. Are you kidding me? How many names can you fit into 3 pages? How many times do you want to brag like that? This isn't a self-help book. This is an excuse for her to brag about all the famous people she hangs out with and how they're all so lovely and they think she's amazing and oh my god, look how cool and popular Lily is. I read quite a lot of like biographies and autobiographies and stuff like that, and I've never seen so much name dropping in one book. It's ridiculous. There is less name dropping in the entire of the incredible Amy Poehler's book than there is in one chapter of Lilly Singh's. And my last criticism is that I find it incredibly odd that she has chapters in her book that she clearly didn't come up with herself. For example, she has this one chapter titled Get Active, and it's very clear that like an editor or someone was like, yeah, we like need to encourage kids to exercise. Parents want to see this kind of stuff. And Lily's like, oh, but do I have to? I don't know anything about exercise. And then the editors or whoever were like, Lily, you'll make money. And she's like, oh, cool, consider it already done. It literally like opens with the line, I am literally lolling as I write this chapter because I'm the least qualified person to do so. Ask me to pull an all-nighter and I will. Ask me to do 20 sit-ups and I will run away from home, throw my phone into the ocean so no one can reach me, and hide in the deepest, darkest corner of the earth. And then she goes on to talk about how great exercise is and you should totally be doing it because, yay, and money. You can tell she did not come up with this stuff herself, and it's just, oh, it's so awkward to read, I guess you could say. Like, it doesn't feel genuine, it just feels so forced and fake, and it's not pleasant, it's not enjoyable, it's not fun. There's just so much repetition throughout this book. There are a lot of flaws and faults with it. It's not necessarily terribly written. I mean, it's not funny, it's not particularly clever, but it's not badly written. I can kind of see why some people might see the appeal of it. So, you know, on a scale of like Gabbie Hanna to Shakespeare, this is somewhere in the middle, you know. But in all honesty, if there is one big important thing we can all take away from this book, it's that if someone as unfunny as Lilly Singh can become so wildly successful as a comedian of all things, then it seems anyone can do pretty much anything as long as they put their mind to it. And that should be inspiring for you guys. Anyway, thank you for watching this today. I hope you didn't mind the kind of rambly, talky format like this. I don't know, didn't really fancy getting on camera today. I'm feeling a little bit crappy. I'm a little bit of a down day. But yeah, you guys were really keen on this video and I've been wanting to make it for a few days now and I just haven't been able to get in front of the camera and do it. So I figured this was a good compromise for you guys, and rambling. Okay, let me know your thoughts this down in the comments. If you've read Lily's book, thought of it, if you've watched her videos or have any other opinions on her, please let me know them down in the comments as well. But for now, thank you for watching today. I appreciate you guys so much, and I will be seeing you again very soon. Hopefully with my face this time, and not just a random voice.